This question is one that many people struggle with. If a person has an alcohol or drug problem, does that constitute a disability? Well, it does if an individual has an addiction and has sought treatment and is in recovery. A person may not be discriminated against, and I feel very passionate about this as a former alcohol and drug counselor. A student may not be discriminated against because of that history. That doesn't take the student's responsibility to maintain a program of recovery to stay sober. A student can't come to class intoxicated or can't show up at work in the case of employment kinds of discrimination issues. However, if a student is in recovery, that's wonderful. That's a success. And that cannot be something we can hold against a student. And I need to make that clear. We cannot discriminate based upon that history. In fact, we should embrace that because that's a success. We've all heard about the opioid epidemic that's occurring. We've all heard about addictions or had perhaps family members struggling with addictions. If a person reaches a point where they reach out for treatment or help and they're in a period of recovery, that is a protected disability by the Americans with Disabilities Act and may not be discriminated against. So please keep that in mind if a student discloses in class that they're in recovery. That, again, is a success, and a lot of faculty have asked when I've done these trainings, but what if you have a student who's in recovery and they relapse, and you're starting to see signs that that student is using again? Yes, a student may be dismissed from a class, or in some cases dismissed from the university if they're arriving to class intoxicated. Just as an employee it might, but I would encourage you to think about another approach, which is this is a student who has a symptom of a disease, and one of those symptoms is relapse. And so this is an opportunity to say, hey, I'm worried about you. Is there a way we can get you back into counseling or back into treatment to get back on track? And so it could be a very wonderful opportunity for that person to get their life back on track as far as recovery. One more note on that, however, is if you have a student who's intoxicated in class, to dismiss them and they get in their car and drive home isn't the outcome we want. And so in that case, it would be important to work with the student to get a ride or to contact the counseling center, or if they get behind the wheel, perhaps even to notify public safety to make sure others aren't put at danger in that circumstance. And so this is one of those disabilities that hinges upon, is the student in recovery at that moment, or is this a student who may need to be referred for treatment? Those types of issues related to a rather complex sort of disability that we address here on campus. And it's certainly not unusual on college campuses to have students who struggle with alcohol or drug issues or what we call substance use disorders.